as well. All right, excellent. Good evening, everybody, including folks who are on virtual. I'm going to call to order tonight's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for May 19th. Whatever time we have. What time is it? 7:33. Thank you. Designation of alternates. I'm trying to still go through some of the order that we've been going through. I believe we need, how many? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7. So we need 2 right now. I believe. Yes. So trying to see, we'll go through with Dwight Reinowitz and Doug Porter, unless this, I will in a minute. I just want to deal with it. Unless you guys don't want to be seated, I'll seat you 2. So we'll note that for the record.
That's fine with me, Jeff.
We'll go through the roll call. We'll do folks first here in person, and then I'll note the commissioners on virtual. So Joe Adeletta, do you mind starting?
Joseph Adeletta.
Jeff Gordon. And we'll just say aye for Doug Porter.
Aye.
Nancy Frazier
Aye.
and Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
And Dwight Reinowitz is on, right?
Yes, sir.
All
Aye.
right, excellent. Good. Thank you. Commissioner Marcotte, do you mind doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. A couple of housekeeping things. I'm just going to ask folks who are on virtual, if you can keep yourself muted so we don't pick up any background noise or echo. The other is with my chair's report. Speaking of virtual, in case folks didn't know, House Bill 5269 was signed by the governor, which has extended the ability for public meetings to be held completely virtual or hybrid. It doesn't, from what the legislation is, my understanding is it doesn't change the substance of what we're already doing, but it continues to allow us to meet this way if we so choose. We have our annual legal training session for June 2nd. We do need to get things to Attorney Roberts. So I would just ask this week if there's anything that you do want to ask the town attorney, get that into Ashley by email. And that way we can try to get some things out to Rich to give him enough heads up to prepare for the session. But that's going to be our special meeting for June, as opposed to a planning meeting. I believe it's June 2nd is the first Thursday, 7:30. We'll meet here. So I confirmed with Rich that he's still available that night. And my usual thank yous for commissioners for attending our meetings and doing the work of the meetings, and for staff for the work that gets done at meetings and in between meetings, including the meeting minutes. So thank you all. That takes us to citizens' comments. Are there any comments by citizens not pertaining to anything that is on the agenda? If anybody has would like to online, can raise your hand if you know how to do that virtual, or otherwise turn your video on if you're able to let us know, or try to keep everything scanned so we can keep track of stuff virtual. Dwight, I see your virtual hand up. Did you have something? Oh, Diane, yes. Did you have something? What is it that you have, Diane? Okay. No, all right. Well, I guess it's not, your hand wasn't up, I guess. Okay, that's fine. That takes us to meeting minutes. We have one set of meeting minutes right now, which is the April 21st, 2022. What is the wish of the commission?
Move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? I'll make the second. Then. Gotta pass the minutes. So, motion by Joe Adaletta, second by Jeff Gordon to approve the meeting minutes of the April 21st, 2022 special monthly meeting as presented. Does anyone have any questions, comments, edits about the meeting minutes? I'll refrain from saying anything about no pictures in the meeting minutes. Because heaven forbid we bring that up. Okay, I'll go through the roll then if there's no further discussion. Let me just double check on. Okay, so I'll go through the roll because we're required to when we have a virtual hybrid meeting. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Mark Blackmer is not present. Sid Blodgett.
Aye.
Nancy Frazier.
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte. And I don't see David Morse. Joe Palula. Okay. Doug Porter.
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
And Timothy Young is not here. So that passes. Excellent. So the record so far for 2022 is still unbroken of minutes being passed. Wow. Can't wait to see what happens through the rest of the year. Excellent. All right, that takes us zipping right along to continued business. We have non-residential zoning permits. Agenda item 5A, 290 Route 169 Supreme Sheds and Barns. This is an application, non-residential zoning. I guess this is to modify the already approved one. Is that correct? And just to remind people, the commission did approve a non-residential zoning permit at its December 17th, 2020 meeting. So this is to modify that. I'll go through if there's any staff comments. Ashley, do you have anything from a staff perspective?
In their lease, they have 8,000 square feet of space that they use. They could use that another 10,000 square feet of space if they need it, but, and they had submitted a letter with application supporting that business as well.
All right, when did that letter come in? What's the date? It is, where? Oh, on the back, okay. I didn't know if they had just, so, okay, that's fine, so. And this map that's up here, something drawn in, and so we don't have copies of what's been drawn in. But just so you can let us know, because we did scan it in so everybody can see it. Can you just point out, Ashley, what's been added in just for clarification purposes? Because that way we can all know.
Where is it?
Can you just state your name for the record, please? Because we just have to have it on the audio. Can you just also state your last name? Thank you. Thank you. So that's what's just been drawn in then. Okay.
Jeff,
Anything else from your, 1 second, Doug.
we can't,
Anything else?
we can't hear anybody. We can only hear you.
Why can't you hear anybody else? Huh.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it was difficult. I couldn't really hear Ashley as well.
On my, no, I shut that off. I can turn it on, but it will echo.
Might be
All right,
better
I have-
than
You're
that.
coming-
My own personal computer over there has the microphone off, so I don't have an echo. But I can turn it on to see if that might help.
Yeah, please, it might help.
How is the audio now?
You're loud and clear. Maybe Ashley could do a test. Test 1, 2, 3.
Can you hear us now, Doug? I put my microphone on.
We can hear you fine, Jeff. It's the other people. So maybe Ashley could speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
And you would, I think you had an applicant that was there. Could she also restate her name so we all can hear it?
So if you could just restate your name for the record, so some of the commissioners online can hear.
My name is Andrew Gadwa, owner of Supreme Sheds and Barns.
You able to hear that, Doug? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ashley, from your perspective?
Nothing from us.
Oh. I'll open it up to our applicant. You're welcome. If there's anything you wish to speak or relate to us. Otherwise, we'll certainly go through the application. Certainly, you're welcome if it's something you want to let us know about.
Podium or?
No, you're perfectly fine there. We can hear you.
All right, basically, I'm a shed company located at 290 Route 69. We're looking to manufacture and deliver sheds to our customers' homes. Apart from on-site building that the original permit was approved for, basically.
Thank you.
That'd be it.
Okay, well, I'll open up to commissioners. If anyone has questions. Joe
Aletta? Yeah, just want to be clear about the status of the land that's being leased. Is that under a special permit now?
That special permit got voided because the bylaws were not filed on time.
Okay.
And the people who got the special permit had notified that they did not want it anymore. Is that what it was?
The answer is no. So that is actually operating under just as formerly a retail business, Rusty Relic.
Yeah, it's just a non-residential that they have.
Okay. So I don't believe that this particular non-residential application is appropriate if there's manufacturing. Since the regulations talk about a special permit for manufacturing in the community district. That's one of the items under the regulations for page 38.
I thought at one of our meetings, we decided it was going to be modifying the non-residential zoning. They discussed that at one of our meetings, I forget which meeting it was recently. That's why the decision was then to go with non-residential modification. I believe we had communication from Attorney Roberts supporting that.
I don't know if it was clear that there'd be continued manufacturing. I think under the original discussion back in December, when the first permit was approved, there was some discussion about just building enough demonstration sheds to show as models to fulfill the retail aspect of the land, which was appropriate. But
Our meeting from April 21st, it looks like here in the minutes, we discussed it. And it said here, the commission agrees that Ashley Stevens should reach out to Supreme Sheds with information and request that they submit application for modification of non-residential permit for the May meeting and that they attend for discussion. So that's where this permit comes from.
okay, so I think this is the discussion in reviewing both the application and the expression that manufacturing will take place on the site. It makes it clearer that in order to be compliant with our regulations, it's a special permit type of application that would be required.
Do you want to speak to that, Dale? Because I know you spoke to it at the last meeting about how we came to our decision. And I know we have Rich Robinson has been contacted, so I just don't, if you wanted to.
I don't have any of my records from before, but the commission discussed it last month and that was the conclusion. That's why he's here, as far as I understand it. So he's here tonight.
I think if I remember correctly, the way we looked at it was the non-residential definition included commercial as one of commercial, industrial, a couple different items. So when you looked at the commercial definition, it said a business for profit. So I think that's kind of how we went to this route, as it is a business for profit. We weren't necessarily looking at manufacturing.
And if the applicant continued with the original approach of just building a set number of demonstration buildings as models without moving them to a customer site, that's fine. I think that would be appropriate. But if the intention, as it's stated, is to continue to build and trailer them to a customer site and manufacture them, becomes a little clearer that it's more of a manufacturing operation or like manufacturing operation. And fall pretty clearly in the special permit definition in a community district.
And we had also had discussions about that we wanted to try to create a definition on tonight about manufacturing at some point. We also had that discussion. We had come to a consensus about the non-residential
I think the
zoning.
consensus was to bring this forward, and if that seemed appropriate, it would be approved. I don't believe that the non-residential permit is appropriate for manufacturing in the commercial. I'm not saying the work can't be done there, but if it's continued to be manufacturing type of operation, then it falls under the category of the special permit. In the community district.
You're referencing our regulations, about uses of special permit, and there's one that says light industrial / manufacturing uses. Is that the one you're noting?
Jeff,
Other commissioners, what other commissioners think about it?
Jeff, could I ask you to turn your mic off? We can hear everybody else. The echo seems to be coming just from your mic.
That's fine. That's why I had my mic off to begin with.
No, not your computer. Your computer's working fine. It's the one that's close to you.
Yeah, but which one do you want? Because are we able to hear them now?
Your computer is picking up everyone in the room. It's
Yeah,
whatever's
we can't hear
closest.
you very well now, so
I'll shut the mic back off then, as long as you're able to hear.
No, that's not what we're saying, Jeff.
Laptop.
yeah, but are we going to be able to hear? I just shut my mic off, so let's see if this works. So we can hear Doug and Doug. Are you able to hear us now, Doug?
Jeff, we can hear you.
Well, I
No
just
one
shut the
else.
mic off on my computer.
No, whatever microphone is next to you is the one that's giving us the echo. The one that's
All right.
on your computer is great.
Are we going to be able to hear you? Do
That's why I brought my computer
today with the mics.
So we'll try to see what we're able to do to
Bounce back and forth, Doug, to not get too much of an echo, but then also be able to hear you and others when you speak. So if you wanted to go ahead, you
shut your mic off. Is that what
can.
happens, or?
I think it works better to hear the online people with our speaker, and then I'll shut off our mic when they stop talking.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just hoping we could address the sound issue. And if Joe could speak again, we could probably find out if it's going to work now. But it was we could hear all the commissioners and the applicant, but when you talked, it was an echo.
Yeah, we're trying to do what we can. I brought my laptop to try to see what we can have the video when.
So we're trying to deal with Jerry rigging the microphones as best as we can.
Okay. Should be working pretty well. We kept trying it out.
Okay.
It just echoed a lot.
So you want Joe to repeat because you weren't able to hear?
No, we could hear Joe. It's just when you talk, it creates the echo.
Yeah, so we're gonna, with Delia's computer, we're trying to manipulate it to try to do what we can to minimize the echo. Was that what you wanted to speak to, or did you actually did you have something further about this?
That's all I wanted to mention. If possibly Delia could mute her microphone, then it might work.
That's the only way we can hear you is if my computer
Okay.
works, but when you guys aren't speaking, I'm gonna shut my speaker off.
We hear that through this.
We can hear.
Can't
Yeah.
hear.
Oh, okay, turn it on.
Yeah, so we're trying to do what we can with various laptops, Doug, until we can get something better set up in this room.
I understand, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we can't hear over there.
Just turn it off.
What
Just
are
turn
you
it
trying
off
to-
for a second.
Mine is off.
So it's,
It's muted?
yeah. Okay.
Doug, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening to the other conversations.
Okay, that seems to work better then for us to be able to hear you. Okay, any thoughts from
Joe, what page are you referring to in the?
39?
It starts on page 38, uses allowed by special permit, and then goes quickly over to 39.
So what do all the commissioners think? We, at our last meeting, we had a consensus about recommending the non-residential zoning permit modification. And I know we had gotten input from Rich Roberts had been asked about that process as well, so we could understand how that would play out relative to that special permit going away. Because there was some confusion about what was happening with the different permits. But at this point now, the question is that the permit now that the commission wants, although we have an application submitted based upon what was advised at that time by the commission last month. And I'm open to what other commissioners think. That's the topic right now.
So at this point, I'll make a motion to deny the application on the basis that it's a manufacturing operation being requested in a community district, and that calls for a special permit. That's the basis of my motion.
So let me just mark this down here. So you're referring to Article 3. I just want to make certain we note this for the record. Section B.
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
K. And that it would need a special permit. That's the reason for, in your motion for denial. Okay. Is there, let me mark down that you made the motion, Joe, so I don't. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
All right, so the motion by Joe Adaletta, second by Joe Kulak, to deny the application due to that it requires a special permit as per Article 3B3K. And in our regulations, that pops up on, happens to be page 39, if anybody wants to look. So that's the motion on the table. So I'm open to what commissioners have to think about that, since that's right now our topic. I don't know if any of the commissioners on virtual have anything to say about that. I want to make certain we include everybody in the discussion, on this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak through the chair. It clearly states on the application for the zoning permit in question 2, description of business, it clearly states that it is to build and deliver sheds. I'd just like to state that for the record, sir.
Okay. Anything from other commissioners? Nancy, did you have your hand up? Yes.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I understand where there's the thought that this is falls under a special permit. And while I don't disagree with that, what I'm a little concerned about is if we have in the past recognized some different, passed some different permits that perhaps should have fallen under special permit but did not, are we treating this particular applicant different than how we've treated other applicants in the past? And while I understand the thought process by Commissioner Adeletta, and I don't disagree with him. I just want to treat everybody equally that comes before the commission.
Thank you, Nancy. Anything from anybody else? Doug, Sid, you have your hand up?
I agree with Nancy that everybody needs to be treated fairly as long as we're being consistent with the regulations. If the regulations weren't followed in some past situation, I don't think we're under any obligation to keep repeating mistakes. We learn from mistakes, we make a correction, and then we move on in the proper path or direction. And in my understanding, this is clearly a manufacturing business or a proposed one. And what Joe Adeletta outlined in his motion, I think is correct.
Thank you, Sid. Doug, was there anything you wanted to say? You don't have to. I want to make certain I don't miss anybody online.
I think we had an applicant who came in and got a permit for a retail operation to sell sheds. But he did disclose at that point that he was going to be building sheds on the site for sale. I think he may be doing more manufacturing than we thought originally, but I think originally we expected that he would be building sheds on the site. My biggest concern with this is that it expanded over a larger area of the site. And I think in our original application, we had a area defined that he had to maintain his operation within. And I think if we can work with that and we maintain his operation within a defined area, like we did with the first permit, I don't think I see it as a problem. My worry was that the manufacturing area would continue to grow and grow, and it would take up more and more of the space. And that's why I asked Ashley to reach out to the applicant for him to show us on a plan where his operations were going to be located on the site. And if we were to approve a permit for this, I think we just need to have it clearly stated where he has to restrict his operations to.
Thank you, Doug. So as far as the motion at hand, which is right now to deny this because it would have to be a special permit, is there anything, I want to make certain that you have an opportunity, if you wanted, to comment on?
I don't see a need for, if he maintains his operation within the area that he originally proposed to us, which I think is what he's doing, I don't think we need to require a special permit. If he wants to expand to a larger part of the property, then maybe we do need to consider a special permit.
Thank you, Doug. I want to make certain everybody else has a chance. Joe Bullock or Jeff. Joe
Well,
Bullock?
on their application form, they actually checked special permit.
Is that what's being submitted, Ashley, then? Because my understanding is this is being submitted as a non-residential.
Yeah. That was my understanding as well.
Let me ask, yeah. So it doesn't look like the applicant filled that out, although the applicant signed it. So let me just ask you a question, Mr. Gadwa. Were you looking to submit an actual special permit? Or was your understanding you were submitting a zoning permit to modify the permit you already have?
I think it was, how it was explained to me, I think it was a modification to the original.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's right.
okay, because technically it does say special permit, but,
It is underlined on our front page, though, expansion of existing use.
right.
But we're not looking to expand. We've always stayed within our 6. Usually never even came close to 6. We're not looking to grow more. We're just trying to stay within our small confined area. We just want to be able to build, that's all. If we could
Okay.
just keep building, just so we can have income, I'd really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Delia, you had something?
I can just make an observation. I haven't spoken with the Nielsen's, but I can recognize her handwriting. Deborah Nielsen pulled out that form. It looks like she wrote manufacturing. I can't read that second word.
Permit.
But she had a special permit that then wasn't filed. So when she filled out the form, maybe she misunderstood. So she isn't probably the one that spoke to Ashley, and she can clarify, correct if I'm wrong, but if Ashley spoke to Mr. Gadwa about the modification, which is what he was sent here from the meeting last month to do, then if the confusion was because someone who wasn't here filled out the form, that could be where the confusion is from.
So again, Ashley, as CEO, it's your understanding this is a non-residential zoning permit modification, not a special permit that was requested.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'd also just like to note that on application type, like non-residential isn't even an option. So it could have just been confusing that.
Okay.
It's not there.
And that seems to then be the understanding that this was not submitted as a special permit, submitted as a modification of a non-residential.
Correct.
And one thing I just want to mention again, since I think it's important to, just so that way it's on the record. We did have a discussion on April 21st about permit. And in our minutes, it does state here, the commission agrees that Ashley Stevens should reach out to Supreme Sheds with information and request that they submit application for modification of non-residential permit for the May meeting and that they attend for discussion. So it seems to me that based upon that consensus and directive, that's why a modification of a non-residential permit was submitted, just so it's understood on the record why the type of permit came to us, not a special permit.
So that was the process that was agreed upon, but I think in viewing the fact that the intention is to continue to manufacture and ship buildings from that site, it just becomes clear that it's a manufacturing operation. And again, I'm supportive of the business if it is willing to stay within the description of its original application of building half a dozen or I think 1,200 square feet worth of buildings to show its models and then construct customers' purchases at the customer sites, which was the original intention.
Okay, and we did make a note back in December of 2020, because it looks here that it was, Mr. Gadwa, you had told us at the time, it was just to have sheds for display purposes, not to manufacture and then ship.
Correct.
But and that at that time, we had stated that if the decision later was to manufacture sheds in the business property, then there would have to be a modification of the permit.
We'll have to come back for a special permit
This was saying here, purpose of modifying the existing special
to the
permit.
special permit.
But actually, the confusion was it doesn't pertain to the special permit. That's where the confusion
Okay.
set in that we clarified last month. The special permit was only to allow a house to be built and be mixed use, not for this business. The permit for this business was a non-residential permit. And that's why we sought clarification from Attorney Roberts last month to figure out what was going on between the two permits, because the special permit had to be voided. So I think that's where the confusion was in the terminology saying special permit. It really would have been for the business permit, not for the special permit, which was separate. There were two different permits at two different times. But so the issue now before us is the motion that's on the table, which is to deny this application due to that it would need a special permit per Article 3B3K. Is there any other discussion? Jeff Marcotte?
Didn't Rich Roberts tell us that he thought of modification was of the existing permit. That was my understanding last month. That Attorney Roberts said that, can modify it, and Ashley brought up some of the points how it could be modified. Now, I'm not disagreeing with Joe. I was under the understanding that council kind of pushed us in the modification of the non-residential business permit.
Well, let me raise this. Would it be helpful? Well, we're not going to do that right now, but would it be helpful for us to consider tabling the application and getting advice from the town attorney on exactly where we stand with the type of permit based upon discussions that have happened before, and sorting out those two permits, which even though it's the same land, so to speak, they were different purposes, and seeing what the town attorney updates us about it, and also relative to the point you raised, Joe.
I'm fine with that because I think it has to be clear that even if it's a manufacturing on a small scale, as Doug Porter was suggesting, it's still manufacturing. And, we have to decide what our regulations mean. And we're going to define the scale of the manufacturing operation, and we have to have better definitions for it. Again, if the applicant is ready to continue to do what the original permit called out, which was again building a fixed number, a set number, and leaving them there as models, the business can continue under the original application. But I'm comfortable with providing Attorney Roberts additional or firmer information about the manufacturing aspect of it and tabling this for further advice from council.
And that also gets into the point that had been raised about trying to better define manufacturing, which is on our list. I actually looked into it. A number of places define manufacturing based upon the scope. There's light, there's medium, there's heavy, depending upon what there is. So that's certainly something that sounds like we're going to need to get some further clarification on. So if we were to table this, which wouldn't be a denial, we would look for the purpose then of getting clarification from Attorney Roberts. And then go accordingly. That's one option. The other option is take a vote on denying it, which is the motion on the table right now. Ashley?
Can I ask what further clarification you want opposed to what we've received already?
Well, to highlight the fact that our regulations, Article 3, Section B, Topic 3K identifies manufacturing in the community district requires a special permit. And that the applicant is talking about manufacturing sheds on this piece of property.
Try to see if I can find that one copy. What Rich said. What was it? I know, Ashley, I think you had communicated with him.
Yeah, it might have been a phone call, and then I'll look through my.
Yeah.
emails really quick.
Or was it your understanding that from what he had said, separate from that special permit, which he agreed was void, this issue, your recollection is that he had supported or advised that we could go the non-residential zoning permit route, and hence that led into in part our quote unquote decision about how to guide the applicant. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I'll open up to the commission then. Do we want to proceed with this motion and deny it, or do we want to table it and seek further input from Rich? I would be in,
Do you have a chance to weigh in?
it may not, but who are you?
Paul Cludier, I'm here for a different business. but
Yeah,
I'm wondering
so-
if I could help with a suggestion.
Well, we're in the midst of a, right, yeah, so we usually don't, because this is a non-residential.
Real quick.
No, one second. This is a non-residential zoning permit, so it's usually not like a public hearing. So, but if we were to table this, then it will be for the purpose of getting clarification from Attorney Roberts.
Is there a way to modify the motion that's on the table?
No, what we would just do is, the cleaner way is withdraw it. And then a new motion is to table. Because it'd be very strange to, you can table a motion to deny, doesn't get back to the original issue, which is the application for us. So you'd have to make it clean to get back to the original application. But Mr. Gadwa, did you have something?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify that we're only looking to build 2 sheds per month. And the original permit, you guys basically negotiated up to 6 sheds I can have on the property, and I actually could build those 6 and display them. Now, what happens if I needed to move those when I leave? So I was wondering if you guys can let us build up to 2 sheds per month, so we can just keep going. I mean, it's nothing, we're not trying to expand to 20, 30 sheds on the property. We're not trying to go big scale. We're just trying to get something, built, basically. We're just trying to do our job and take care of customers,
No, I understand. We also have to abide by the provisions of that original permit.
Yeah,
But the issue is in trying to sort through what we had advised last time and then where we're standing now with this motion that we're trying to sort through. So I'm wondering if, again, it may just be better not to do anything about denying. If there's a question we really need to clarify with the attorney, let's get it clarified. If the attorney is telling us that we could still do non-residential zoning permit modification, we take that under advisement, but we have to seek that, as opposed to, unless we just want to proceed with taking a vote on the motion at hand. I understand the issue that you're raising, Joe. I'm also, trying to deal with the fact what advice we have given Mr. Gadwar at our last meeting, based upon input we received and what we had, suggested to do for that business. If they're going to stay within the footprint already there, what could we do to facilitate things continuing, but mindful that we need just to make certain we're clear what our process is and how we're going to handle things moving forward as far as being consistent.
Well, the indication is that we'd be willing to table this until you advise. I'm certainly willing to withdraw the motion to deny the application.
And
I
Joe
agree.
Bullock, are you okay
I
withdrawing?
agree.
So why don't we know for the record that's been withdrawn?
Okay.
That would then be that we would table, our next meeting is when? What is it, the 16th, the business meeting?
Yes.
And get input from Rich. Okay. That would be a suggestion then, as far as a motion to have.
Yes. I would make a motion to do that, to do just that, table it until our meeting, or June 16th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So motion by Joe Adaletta, second by Joe Kulak. Oh, a double Joe motion.
Can't be better than that.
So, well, a double Jeff motion would be better. So, but that's, I'm biased. So this is to table the application to the June 16th meeting and to obtain advice, input from Attorney Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, for that. That's the motion for discussion. One question I want to raise would be, if we're tabling this, which isn't a denial, we're tabling it, where do we stand with the status of Mr. Gadwar continuing to do what he's currently doing relative to what the permit originally says? How does the commission feel? We did issue a notice of violation, is that correct, Ashley? So the issue would be, while we're waiting till the next meeting, do we have to have him stop the manufacturing? Or do we allow him to continue as he's currently doing until we get the clarification? I'm just raising it just so that way we can be clear to Mr. Gadwar what we're doing during this time, relative to him, during this time that this is tabled to get further clarification from the attorney.
I think it's important that as soon as possible that you contact the attorney. And if he says, yeah, that paragraph says manufacturing and it requires a special permit, to get him to fill out the special permit application.
Right, but it's not that easy, because he has to get.
Well, we need to get the input back to us.
Exactly.
Right, we're tabling this so we can review the input from the attorney.
Right.
So the issue, my question is, while we're in this process, he still has his business operational. Do we say, can't do any manufacturing, have to follow the provisions of what our original permit was? Or do we say, you're already doing this, even if the permit was exceeded, but you're submitting an application, and even if it turns out that the attorney says it has to be a special permit, do we allow it to continue for right now as we're trying to sort through this? Delia, then Nancy?
I thought I remembered from your original application that you would go to your customer sites and build sheds. Do you do that now?
Yeah, I'll do that now, yeah.
So we just continue.
Well, that's what I'm
going
asking.
business.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he's gonna, are we gonna say, follow the original permit, but don't exceed it? Or if there's already been exceeded, do we allow that to happen while we're sorting this out? What do we do relative to his operations? Nancy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I would weigh on the side of allowing. And the reason why I feel that way is because at the last meeting, we requested, we requested the applicant to follow, file this, which he filed. And I'm just a little bit mindful of if we do need a special permit now, if that's what the advice of Attorney Roberts is, we steer the applicant one way, and now we may request something different. And I just, I think while we're getting that information, perhaps it would be prudent to allow the business to continue.
I'm in agreement with Nancy on that.
That's you, Joy?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what others think. Joe?
My feeling is we do have the permit that the applicant is currently operating under. And the applicant has indicated that he is and can build sheds at a customer site, which is clearly in compliance with the original permit. That's fine. The original permit allowed for 6 buildings or 1,200 square feet of buildings on site. That is property. And if that is something he wants to continue to build, if he doesn't have 6 or 1,200 square feet, that's okay to build those models there. But they have to stay there as models, because that's what the original permit is. And continue to build at a customer site.
What do others think? Follow the provision of the original permit. Was there, did you have your hand up, Sid? I'm trying to follow also on Zoom. Want to make sure that everybody has a chance.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. I'm just kind of thinking it through, talking to myself.
Oh, okay. Anything further? Doug, did you have anything further about how to guide the applicant or follow the provisions of the original permit and then see which type of permit we need according to Rich Roberts?
I would allow him to proceed with the current permit and waiting for the response from Attorney Roberts.
Okay, anything from anybody else? Okay, that would seem to be then the guidance would be the current permit that's in place has to be followed. We have to then, it looks like we'll take a vote on this to table and get the input from Attorney Roberts as to kind of clarify now which permit. The non-residential zoning permit modification that we had discussed last month, or does it actually technically fall under special permit for the reasons you mentioned, Joe, at 11? And then we would get that input from Rich. We'll want that in, well, ideally, we should just get that in an email form so we can get that in writing actually from him. So it's also in the file, unless he feels we it's privileged attorney-client info, but I don't think he's gonna have that concern. We have to get his answer publicly. And then we'll know exactly which way we're going when we bring this to our next meeting, which is, well, next business meeting. And then we will go accordingly, given the issues and some of the questions that have to be answered. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Sid.
If I agree with what you're saying, as far as getting a written response from Attorney Roberts, I'm just concerned about at the next meeting, if more questions arise, trying to answer those in a timely manner. So I'm just wondering what the commission thinks about asking Attorney Roberts to be available by phone during our meeting. In case some issues come up, we can answer them then and there instead of waiting yet another month.
Yes, we can certainly ask him. There wasn't anything we thought we needed him for this meeting, so he doesn't attend every meeting. But Ashley, if you can ask him for the June 16th meeting, when you communicate with him, if he could be on for that agenda item. And then you're right, Sid, if there's anything further, we'll have a discussion with him. And if we need to have something further explained about his advice, we can get that from him. We can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Is there anything further on this motion then, which is the table? I'll go through the roll. So this is the motion to table to the June 16th meeting, and in the meantime, get advice from Attorney Roberts. Joe Adaletta.
Aye.
Here, Sid Blodgett,
Aye.
Nancy Frazier,
Aye.
Jeff Gordon, aye. Jeff Marcotte.
Aye.
Here, Joe Palula.
Aye.
Doug Porter,
Aye.
Dwight Reinowitz.
Aye.
So that passes. So right now, the application is tabled, but it's not denied. And our next meeting is June 16th, as far as business meetings.
Okay,
And we'll certainly beforehand, we can let you know where we stand with stuff heading into that meeting.
Okay.
So we'll take it back up, and then we should hopefully have some clarification. If the advice comes back that that yes, you can proceed with the non-residential zoning permit modification, the commission will have to make a decision if it agrees with that advice. If it does, we take the permit back up. If the advice comes back that it has to be a special permit, then we'll deal with that process and we can go accordingly.
Or continue to operate under the current permit. So it doesn't feel like the business is closed.
No, it isn't, and that's why I wanted that clarification, that what to let you know as far as what to do. None of this shuts you down at all.
well,
You just have to follow the current permit that you were
Yeah.
granted.
yeah, well, I appreciate all you guys. Whatever I can do to help, I will.
Okay. Yep. So we're just trying to make certain whatever we're doing is proper legal.
Right.
Because if we say, we give some sort of approval and somebody appeals and we didn't follow what we were supposed to legally, then our approval could be bounced back by the courts, for example. So there's always, we need to make certain things are clear and legal. So that's why sometimes we have to deal with these issues. Not minor when we're dealing with permits.
No.
So that's why we just want to make certain, but right now you just got to follow the current permit that you have, the business isn't shut down.
Okay,
So, okay, well, thank you for coming tonight.
yeah.
We'll try to get this squared away as quickly as we can for you.
Thank you.
Okay. I need to go to my agenda. Oh, here it is. That takes us to, we don't have any old business, is that correct? No. We don't have any new business to speak as we have preliminary discussions. We have no public hearings. I don't know why we have old business twice, but I probably duplicated it. We're zipping right along.
Better be safe than sorry.
Just want to make certain that it's actually really old business, and we don't have that either. So, but we have a couple of preliminary discussions. One is agenda item 10A, Echo Farm, discussion of a special permit for items sold beyond agricultural items. I just want to state on the record We as a commission know this, but I just want to make certain it's clear that prelim discussion, there's no application before us. We don't take votes. This is an informal discussion. We always appreciate people coming to us for preliminary discussions because they can certainly hash through a lot and clarify and answer questions to make the process easier. So thank you for coming tonight. And it's non-binding, meaning what you tell us is non-binding and what we say is non-binding in the sense that if you say that you were wanting to do A, B, and C, and then you decide you want to do A, B, C, D, and F, and submit an application, you're not beholden to certain things you tell us here. We do take into consideration our discussion as far as what your ideas are, questions and stuff like that. So that this is separate from an actual application, for that, just the way that we operate. But what I'll do is, because this is a preliminary discussion, and part of it is for the benefit of you, if you wanted to let us know what you're thinking of, what you would like for any questions or comments to ask us, to tell us, by all means. If you could just, I'll just have one of you speak at a time so we can get the audio clear, and just state your name for the record because we do have to record the meeting. But please, the floor is yours, and let us know what your ideas are and what you would like to chat with us about or ask us.
Robert Chang, farmer at Echo Pond in Stock. Thank you guys for having us here and for allowing us to pick your brains and ask some questions. We're a certified organic vegetable cut flower farm. We sell at farmers markets locally, and also sold at a small farm stand that's a temporary tent on that location for the past couple of years. We're right now in the process of building a permanent new barn that will hold our new permanent farm stand indoors. And we can intend to continue to sell vegetables and cut flowers at that farm stand once the barn is complete. But we are also interested in selling some other products as well that are not cut flowers and vegetables. And so we wanted to get an idea for what kinds of products we could include and what rules or guidelines we follow in order to sell those at the farm stand. Right now, the products that we have in mind, and this is very preliminary for us because this is really very new. My partner Bruce makes some crafts at home, so those include like scented candles. We sell a number of our cut flowers to customers who use them for gifts, and so it would be nice to include some handmade crafts that go along with that theme as a gift for our customers. Through our participation in local farmers markets, we've become acquainted and friends with other local crafters who sell at those markets. And we thought that some of their products might be complementary to some of the things that we sell in the store. For instance, we have a friend who makes produce bags and shopping bags out of organic cotton and decorates them with vegetable inks. And so instead of offering plastic bags for our customers to bag the produce and the flowers, we might like to offer some of her bags in our store. We're also working with somebody who's got some hives, bee hives at our farm. And I believe we, in addition to selling the honey that collects from the hives, may also offer products made from the wax. So those are the types of things that we're interested in including in the store. Again, this is very preliminary. We haven't really actually spoken to anybody and signed any agreements in terms of how much product or what types of products we're going to include in the store. We're certainly not interested in becoming a general store. While it might make good business sense for us to sell things like paper towels or toilet paper, that's certainly not what we're interested in doing. But I think we had a conversation with you just a few minutes before the meeting started, Jeff. What I think we'd like to know, and I understand you as a commission are exploring and figuring out, is how to define what's farm related, what's ag related, and what's not. And certainly some products are pretty maybe clear cut, and others aren't so much. Again, we're personally interested in supporting local crafters, people who are building things by hand rather than mass-produced items. But again, it's not clear, somebody wants to sell pottery or, some woodworking creative item, not necessarily ag-related. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is where you guys are thinking of drawing the line, and we certainly appreciate that. This may be an ongoing conversation between us and you and the community in terms of what may be acceptable today and what may change as time goes on and our understanding becomes more clear.
Well, we were going through updating the ag regulations and having some discussions about what's permitted, by right, so to speak, given that Woodstock is an ag-friendly town. And the commission has been supportive of agriculture over many, many years. What is the evolving nature of agriculture, ag events, but also what happens with retail that isn't ag per se, that people want to start selling stuff that's, you're right, selling toilet paper, other things that really fall into like what Dollar General would sell. And then non-ag events that happen on an ag farm, for example. We had to stop that discussion because we had to pivot to the affordable housing plan update. But the plan is now we're going to pivot back to the ag again and bring all this stuff up. From what I'm just trying to think through some of the stuff you were mentioning. You're talking about wanting to sell honey and products made off of the beeswax. I believe, isn't that falling also under agriculture by the state? Because the definition of agriculture has a long list of stuff the state has. So things that are ag that are on the farm, very much will fall under what we've been allowing farm stores to do and what we've been trying to sort through. As far as ag products that may not be from your farm, but might be local, so to speak, that we've had discussions about how to allow that versus things that are blatantly non-ag. I don't think paper towels would count, even though technically they eventually come from some tree somewhere. But it sounds like you're really looking for certain things that are more that fall under ag, but some craft stuff you're talking about, like candles and stuff.
No, we're looking for things that, again, we've seen through our participation in various farmers markets that there's a compatibility between the farmers who are bringing their produce to those markets and the crafters who are also coming to those markets and selling items. And we can sort of see from how the customers respond to all of that, what things appear to be compatible and what things don't work so well. And I guess, again, we've made friends with a number of the vendors there, and we're just sort of wondering if our farm stand, which we'd like to be open for more than just the weekend, would give those vendors an opportunity to, to market some of their products alongside what we're going to offer in the store. And again, we're looking for things that are compatible. So, we're a historic farm in town. We're certified organic. So I think it sort of gives you an idea for some of the things that we're thinking of.
Well, let me open this up.
Potentially selling.
We've had some discussions because we know there are several farm stores in town. And on one hand, we could have been very heavy-handed and said that some of the things farm stores are doing can't do because our regulations don't have regulations on it. But we've had discussions before that to allow certain things to happen to certain degrees at some of the farm stores, but we're looking to update the regulations to really give a lot more guidance on what types of permits, not to be heavy-handed with permits, but really give upfront guidance to what new farm stores might want and existing farm stores might want. And I know we've said this on the record before at times that if we were to say we draw a line somewhere that how much non-ag products can a farm store sell before it might cross the line to become really just, you know, a general store and not so much an ag or farm store, that we're going to have to at some point set where things stand. I know Dexter Young at the time on the commission had raised that as well and had cited some documents from the state of Connecticut who was getting some guidance on certain things. Well, how do we feel if we're allowing some of the farm stores now to be doing certain things as we're working through the regulations to be consistent, so to speak, and allow some of that to happen in this case, knowing where we are working on the regulations? Joe?
Well, I want to express my appreciation to the two of you to come forward with your ideas at this point and trying to get some guidance. And it's looking like it's a combination of agricultural sales and retail sales, the arts and crafts, which are clearly not agricultural related, but more on the retail side. And it leads to a special permit application for retail sales. And I don't see an issue with that as the direction for a special permit, or limiting it to that new structure and that retail operation, not the whole farm, obviously, but just the operation we looked at as the retail part. So I would say it falls under the current guidelines of a special permit. As we're talking about agricultural related issues, we may include in that discussion some classes of special permit that we don't have now, but might consider as creating different classes of a special permit so that all the requirements of the current regulations for a special permit may not necessarily have to apply to a retail operation on a farm related business. So that's my thought. The current description would fall under the current regulations of a retail type operation and hence a special permit.
And we have had discussions, and we'll bring it back up, about what different types of permits to allow without making everything a special permit.
Right.
And we were thinking through that, and we're going to be taking that back up. Let me ask a corollary question to what you said, Joe. For example, let's say we say, well, they have to do a special permit. What about the rest of the farm stores that have been doing some of this stuff and probably a bit more? Are we going to go back to them and say, well, you now have to pull special permits off? Those stores have been doing some things, and some a little bit more than what they might be proposing now. I'm just trying to think through what might be the fair way of handling it. If those stores are being allowed to do that now without a requirement of a special permit, as we're trying to figure out what to do and update the regs, which has been our working plan, wouldn't it be fair and reasonable to let them do it as well? Because if we were to say you have to pull X, Y, and Z permit now, if that's different from what the other farm stores are, we'd have to go back and tell them. So, yeah, so I'm just raising that as far as what to allow as we're trying to update the regulations. Delia?
I'd be concerned that if there already exists, then, and they were allowed on their farm business to go back and say, well, we've created this new regulation, and now you have to do something. I think they're already existing, not having been found to be a violation. They should be allowed to continue this grandfather business.
And that proved that that
Just like
supports my
any other
point.
grandfather business, when all of zoning was started, they were all allowed to continue.
And that would support my point then.
Zoning isn't retroactive.
Why would we now require it if we haven't required it for those others?
So at what point do you require some of that?
My thinking has been, we are working on updating the ag regs. And then moving forward, if any existing farm store then starts exceeding what they're doing or gets into something different, and we have regs to guide them as far as what they might want to do, whether it's some type of, ag permit, all the way up to some really massively big event that draws thousands of people that might require a special permit, then they have the guidance of what to do moving forward. But again, I'm open to what people have to say about it.
Well, that's why I thank Bruce and Robert for coming forward with their plans now to get the kind of guidance that has not been requested in the past.
Delia, you have something more?
In the past, home occupations were allowed to be retail. They were limited. Size of the structure or the size of the home occupation was limited compared to the size of the home. And you're allowed to have 4 parking spaces, which isn't very much for a retail business. So we know, I won't rehash anything, but we know sometimes that gets too large for that kind of permit. So when you go to discuss that, maybe along with ag businesses, you can consider what should be allowed as a home occupation and what's too big for that. Because maybe there's another category you could create that could be bigger than a home occupation and require something different, maybe site plan review or even a special permit, but maybe you could allow for something.
And we've actually talked about that as well when we were discussing ag, at the same time looking at what to do with different ag permits, what to do overall with non-ag stuff as well, to be consistent, that if, say, a farm wants to pull a non-ag permit because it wants to start getting into concerts and weddings and stuff, well, we want to make certain what we do is consistent for the non-ag businesses otherwise, so we're not starting to create confusion, you know, mostly in the community district, which is the main district in the town. So that is on the list as well for us to be sorting through. At the same time, we're going to be taking that all back up. Was there anything from anybody else as far as thoughts, as far as to discuss further, as far as, you know, what they're proposing? Is there anybody from the commission on that I missed online or virtual? Okay. All right.
Is there any
Yes,
way
Joe
we
Bullock?
can inventory what the existing farm stands are selling, which are non-agricultural products? Could we inventory that to find out?
I guess we could query it. We had some discussion about how, you know, how does one determine if we say you can't have more, let's just say a magic number, can't have more than 25% non-ag retail items. We have to have some mechanisms of how do we define that and how do we assess that? Because it's fine just to say it, but there's always the mechanism. So that's stuff that we've talked about.
You know, but
Prior.
like jewelry and pottery and handbags, stuff like that, they're probably not agricultural.
Yeah, we had some discussions about that before, and some towns do have some regs they've been developing in that regard that we were looking at, and we're going to take those back up to look at. But yes, that's stuff that we've discussed and need to discuss again. Delia?
I keep hearing people use the word farm stands, but in the zoning regulations, farm stands are temporary and they're on wheels or blocks and they are supposed
Farm
to be
store.
moved. So I don't think what we're actually talking about is a farm stand. It sounds like an actual business in a
Store.
building.
Yeah, it's a farm
So-
store that's permanent.
Maybe you want to, in your name, maybe you wanted to call it, you know, farm stand, something as a cute name, but what we're actually talking about, I don't think is a farm stand.
Yeah, and we've noted that prior when we said, yes, there's a distinction between farm store and farm stand. As far as your barn, I'm assuming is permanent. The way I see it's being built, it looks like it may last the test of time. So I'm looking to see how, when I drive by it almost every day, that looks to be pretty solid. So I don't think that's movable. So as far as giving them guidance, where do we stand as far as what guidance to give them as far as what to do? You had mentioned something about home occupation. Were you mentioning it as far as doing the non-ag retail as part of a home
It's been allowed
occupation?
in the past, but I can see how if they're successful, and we would hope they would be, it could become a problem with quickly becoming too large.
And then
So,
we need to come up with a process. How do you handle that?
Although currently your zoning regulations don't say what kind of uses, they just limit home occupations by size and a couple of other standards, but not about use.
Yeah, it limits
So-
it based upon square footage of the primary residence.
Number of employees, number of parking spaces,
Right.
that kind of stuff. It doesn't say what kind of use.
Do you live on the property?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I thought.
but
So,
we're really hoping not to use the house for the car business anymore. That's why we're building the barn.
so if they have the barn and they're moving their farm store arrangement you have now into the barn.
Right.
And can you use part of the barn as a home occupation? Or does it have to be in the house?
It's
I thought
probably
it can
allowed
be.
to be used in a different structure, as long as the size doesn't exceed what's allowed. It's just the problem with, if they become so successful so quickly and they need more employees or they need more parking spaces, and then
It says here, no more than 1/2 of the finished floor area of the dwelling unit may be utilized for the home occupation. So whatever the square footage is, the finished square footage of the dwelling unit, you can't have more than half of that as your home occupation. I don't know how much
Assuming
square,
that that's the non-agricultural side of that.
right, I don't know if that's a way if that's permitted, if they were to say, we don't want to go through a special permit. I'm just trying to think of different options in my head as we're dealing with this. If they say, well, we would like to do a home occupation, we have, let's say, just picking a number, 2,000 square feet of finished area in the dwelling unit. And then they ask, could we do a home occupation using half of that square footage, but carving that out into the barn? Would that be allowed as a home occupation? I'm just trying to think of different questions we might get from people.
I'm not the CEO anymore, but I just wanted to comment that one challenge I see with that is the parking. Because farm businesses don't have any sort of standard on how many parking spaces you can have. All farms are a business, and some of them are busier than others on site. Like you said, you go to farmers markets, those kinds of farmers probably have very few customers that go to your actual properties. And other farms, like farmers' cattle, they have trucks that come and take them away. Although I heard they still have customers that go in and buy products from them on the site. So there's so many different variations on a farm, but the farm part of it doesn't have a limit on the parking spaces, and the home occupation does. So I guess you'd have to figure out if they're doing the craft business as the home occupation, how do you figure out if they're in compliance with that and the rest of the parking is ag customers or something?
Yeah, because home occupation, you can't have more than 4 client/customer parking for home occupation. That's different from other types of.
And farm businesses don't have a standard right now, how many,
They don't know, and that's why we're updating regulations, right?
if you have,
Yep.
pick your own of whatever type of crop that you have, you might have a crowd showing up on a particular day.
Yes,
I'd like to go back to Joseph's first point and just to get some information from you all. What's involved with getting a special permit? Seems like we've talked a lot tonight about avoiding applying for a special permit. What's so horrible about it?
well, I wouldn't say anything horrible. It's a more involved type of permit. I think there's more fees associated potentially with it. A special permit, you have to submit whatever is required to the commission that's spelled out in the regulations. And certainly Ashley, as the zoning enforcement officer, can provide you that info. The way the regulations are spelled, it's almost like a checklist. You have to submit to us. We then have to schedule a public hearing, which usually is a month later. People within, was it, butters within 500 feet have to be notified, is it 500 feet? Yeah.
Something.
People have to be notified within a certain radius of the property line. It is a public meeting, but then anybody can otherwise participate in the public hearing, so neighbors could show that they wanted. And when we grant the special permit, it runs with the land, so to speak. So it's not running with you as the owner, it's running with the property. You could do that if you wished. It is a more involved process. And I forget the fee structure of it, there's a bit more of a fee structure to it, separate from whatever the state charges. The state charges like $60 for like every permit, just so they get their money. That's out of our control. Some people go that route. I know when we've been having discussions about what to do with different ag permits, we weren't necessarily talking about making special permits across the board. We were thinking of trying to make it tiered based upon the scope and whether it's really an ag type of permit, or is it a non-ag event that people want to start doing big concerts, you know, and then you're starting to get into a whole host of things like traffic and things like that. One could do, you know, go a special permit if one wanted. So
And it allows requests for waivers.
it does require, yeah, and you can actually request waivers for different things. Well, you can't request waivers for standards, meaning we have certain standards in the regulations that you have to follow, like permit requirements, things you have to put into the permit. If we, right, the application, if we say you need A, B, and C, and that you have to provide it, but it makes no sense for you to provide C because it's not pertinent to your application, you can request us to waive that application requirement. So, but you can do that if you wish. I was just trying to think what would be some of the different options that people could have, because right now we don't have those regulations spelled out. Delia?
We had a big discussion where things that were not relevant, we don't need to have a waiver of those.
No, what I just said was, if we say A, B, and C has to be provided, that's different from what we have saying may, if the commission determines.
I know, but I thought you said, then you wanted to say, but it's not relevant.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if we say you have to have A, B, and C submitted for your application, but you feel, for example, item C isn't relevant. Doesn't mean we feel it's relevant or not. You can submit a request for us to waive that part of the application submission item. But there's a process that's followed. Joe?
Since this is-
Oh, go ahead.
Since this is only preliminary discussion and nothing's binding, I would suggest that you spend some time with Ashley to look over the special permit regulations. And, you know, you're right, there is an attempt to smooth the way to not have a special permit, but it's not necessarily the worst thing to apply for a special permit, particularly if there are portions that can be waived because they're not really applicable to the particular permit. So,
And if at some point you wanted to sell toilet paper, you actually could.
Yeah, I was gonna say that if you, I'm not steering you one way or the other, but let's say you did a special permit. And we say, well, this special permit will cover non-ag retail.
Right.
That special permit gives you more opportunity in the future.
Right.
Unless you wanted to come back and say, well, now we wanted to get into something much different than retail. We wanted to start getting into, I don't know, whatever, you know, now we want to start manufacturing and selling tractors. That might require coming back for a modification of a permit, but some people would view the special permit of giving them more flexibility and opportunity moving forward without having to constantly come back for little things to modify. So there's a pro and a con. And again, right now, we have to really delve into the regulations, update them. But some people do find the special permit an advantage that way. That's really what people think they want to do. Was there anything from any other commissioner? I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay. Did I answer your question about this special permit?
Yeah, for now, I think what I'm trying to understand in terms of a summary of what our options are, it sounds as if you guys need to have some discussion about what existing farm stores are able to do. And please, I don't want this to have an impact on my colleagues in town who will keep me.
No, it's not going to. Don't worry about that.
And trying to do the right thing. So I hope that they're able to grandfather in, you guys are able to grandfather in whatever they're doing. So it sounds as if, again, depending on what exactly our products are, and I think, yes, there are some products that we're considering that are not, whose connection to ag is very loose, if not existent. So it sounds as if we need to put together a list, maybe general categories, but not necessarily specific items, about what are the things we want to sell in the store, and that would be part of our application. And we need to, there's certainly a special permit application. That's one route. The other route is what? No application at all? What is the other option?
Well, if we're gonna want to have some sort of, I mean, I don't want to see anything have to be retroactive. And I think we've had discussions about that relative to the farm stores that are in existence. But we have to, whenever we come up with the regs, people have to follow those if they're going to want to expand or do even more. That might bump into the regs, trying to be as supportive as we can of the ag community. And not heavy-handed. The issue would be, it doesn't sound like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley or Delia, it wouldn't be zero. Just do whatever you want right now.
No.
Right. But I guess it would be some sort of permit based upon what you would like to do now, but mindful of what you might want to potentially expand into to give yourself that opportunity
So
in
that's
the
a,
long term.
so that's the special permit that you're talking about, Dr. Gordon, or you're talking about what would our application then be if we're not going the special?
Well,
permit?
that's why I was trying to raise different ideas. As a special permit, like you had raised, Joe, as one option. I don't know if home occupation would cover, but you'd be limited in what you can do in a home occupation. Because home occupations by definition are supposed to be low scale, low scope, low impact. We don't have any other type of permit unless, is there a non-residential zoning permit that could be done? Concurrent? What?
That's only for properties that have already had businesses in our grandfather.
Right, I'm just trying to think, would that be allowed if there's ag going on, but now they want to do non-ag, we couldn't, I guess I would have to then.
It's a change of use. So in the past, when we've had a grandfathered business and it's wanted to change from one use to a completely different use, you require a special permit. Like retail to retail, that's the same use, so it hasn't needed a special permit. But if they can show they can meet with or comply with the standards for home occupation, then how could they be denied? They just
Really
have to
couldn't.
understand that if they exceeded that, then they would have an issue. The problem is making sure they comply. So maybe you keep all of your crafts confined to one room of your barn that meets the size allowed for home occupation. And you have your 4 parking spaces at least, and you know, anybody else, if they're buying flowers and cabbages or whatever, you know, you might have customers who might buy both, so maybe half their parking spaces is for buying home occupation stuff.
But again, you'd have to think about what you want to do in the short term, but also potentially grow into the long term. You know, as far as it is. Joe?
But just in the meantime, by right, if you only want to sell what you're growing and producing on the farm, you can do that by right.
Yes,
And I think it's all the accessory
absolutely.
Yes.
issue parts that's really part of this discussion. So you're building, you certainly want to utilize it. And if you just sell what you grow, that's fine.
And as you can see, we're trying to, these are part of these discussions we've had before, we're gonna have again, trying to think through all these possibilities to try to give regulations that can be giving guidance in the future for all different possibilities. And this is part of what we're having to go through. So this helps us in hearing from people, certainly, who are in the ag community, and we do work well with the ag community in that regard. So I guess it really would come down to what it is you're really thinking you want to do now and what you might want to grow into. And what might be the best route for you to be able to do that. You know, in
Mr.
that
Chairman?
regard. Yes, Doug?
I think it really comes down for the applicants a little bit on what their time schedule is. I think we are going to address this issue over the next few months, but it may take us a while.
Yes.
Because I think that's going to be an involved process, because we have to deal with what some of the existing farm stands are selling and how we think that impact. my suggestion to the applicant is to go the special permit route. It may cost them more money, but then it's done and it's clear what's been approved and it goes with the land. You really don't know what's going to happen in our discussion of how we're going to address non-locally grown items in our farm stand things. But I think there's an interest in supporting agribusiness in town right now. That may change, but right now I think it's a strong interest in maintaining it. So I think you'd find a positive response to a special permit that included more items being sold in your store, but that made your store economical for you or financially feasible for you. And then you don't have to worry what happens in the future because it goes with your land. And as long as you maintain within that, the operations of that permit, you're in good shape. And I think you'll address the issues with parking because you want to make sure that your clients can get in and out, and you want to make sure that it's safe getting in and off of Route 169. Those are the issues that typically come up in a special permit. And I think your site has advantages because it's on a state highway. It has good sight lines. You have some extra space there that you can allocate for parking. I just think in the right now, it's a cleaner approach to do it as a special permit.
I would agree, Doug, that may well give you the best opportunity. We certainly hope you'll continue to be successful in this and stay in the community, especially if you're going to be building a nice big barn, get that finished. That might, as I'm thinking about it, may well give you, as Doug mentioned, a better opportunity to grow and expand into that use with the upfront special permit supporting you than if you go a different route and then you expand a little bit more, you want to do a little bit more, you got to keep coming back to us, which over time it adds up to more than it does the upfront doing it. So I guess it really depends upon what you think you want to do, but Doug is right. Anything we do with the regulations is going to take a little bit of time as far as how we have to work it through and go through any approval process of updating the regulations. I know you guys may not want to wait for that. That's going to take us some time. But that, just thinking about the different options, I think Doug raises a good point. That may be an option to seriously consider to really get yourself that long-term benefit. Yes. And then Delia, yes, please.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, if you, okay.
I don't mind, no.
Okay, so I had a question about timelines. Realistically, how long do you think it would take for the commission to come up with these regs? Is this likely to get approved at some point in 2022? Are we talking about 2023 or beyond? And also, how long does it take an average special permit application to get turned around from the submission process to approval? Is that like a 6-month process or longer?
Well, if you're a gas station, it seems that took multiple months, but I digress.
That really was the fault of the, it wasn't our fault, that was the fault of the applicant, so.
I think the engineering firm, as far as the special one, let's say, for example, we take those up at our business meetings. So our next business meeting is June 16th. We do have a deadline, more or less. We'd like to have submissions in because commissioners have to get their meeting packets. They have to review through everything as opposed to getting it on the spot. That's usually 10 days, which is a Monday before we meet. We take the application. If we feel it's a complete application, understanding that sometimes you may not have certain things from other agencies right away, but if we think that it's an otherwise complete application, we'll accept it. We then have to schedule a public meeting. Usually that public hearing, will happen, the business meeting the following month. So if you submit and say, let's say for our June 16th meeting, whatever that third Thursday in July is, I don't know when that is. That would be, for example, when we would start a public hearing. If it's not a very involved thing where we have to get tons of engineering review, we have a packed room of hundreds of people who want to weigh in and speak. There's tons of moving parts. We have to wait for 10 trillion other agencies, like the state, for example. many times, special permits get adjudicated, quote unquote, could be quickly. Sometimes we close the public hearing that same night and could even make a decision that same night. It doesn't sound like you're gonna submit anything that's massively complicated. Where you're gonna build a big gigantic road and all sorts of different things. So the less involved the special permit is, and the less the moving parts, the easier it is for us to digest and to sort through. So it is possible as quickly, let's say as a July meeting, we make a decision. We just can't start the public hearing the same night we take the application, the way, because of notices we have to do by state law. But that could be a time frame. I don't think by July we're going to have the ag regulations finalized. I don't believe so. I know we were looking to try to do it this year, but affordable housing, we had to deal with this deadline by the state. So we had to pivot to that. Whether or not we could try to get it done this year, we're always optimistic, at least I am. But you have to be realistic. So I don't think you should wait for us to try to sort out those regs, because whatever we're going to do with those regs, we really want to make certain we get good input and that we've really thought them through before we say, here's what's going to go into the regulation manual. So I would say if you thought you wanted to get something into the June meeting, we would likely schedule a public hearing for July. I can't guarantee it, but that's really the way we operate.
Are you going to have a inside bathroom in this barn?
Yes,
Okay, then that,
it's not intended for the public.
okay.
Would that have to get NDDH approval?
Of course.
Yeah, so you'd have to
That
get
would have
public
to
health
get
approval.
Public health approval.
For which part?
The bathroom.
Well, for the bathroom going into the septic system.
Oh, yes, we have that agreement.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, you have a septic system design already approved?
Yes.
Okay.
That is a big help because
That's a big help.
Yeah, because NDDH sometimes can take a while because they're staffing, so.
The barn's being built already, they already had the permit for the barn. This is just.
Yeah, but I meant sometimes the barn doesn't have a
Doesn't
toilet.
need that, you're
Yeah,
right.
we included it.
Well, that's why barns usually are surrounded by woods, right? So that way, the way it used to be in town, going back to 1686 when it was settled. But did you have something, Delia? And then
yes, I
we
was
can-
thinking if you're giving them the example of submitting a special permit in June, if you're requiring a survey and all that other stuff, they take a long time, they're very expensive. So if you wanted to start out small, I don't see why it would be a problem to start out with a home occupation, because it's not expensive. Start out small. Most businesses like that are small to start with. Once you are open for a while, you can decide if you want to stay small or if you want to grow. And then you could decide if you want to do a special permit, but you would have to look into it. Compare prices amongst different firms and have time to plan. But if you try to do that now, you don't have that income stream to help you figure that out. And also scale of your business plan. If you're gonna pay for the survey and the engineer to attend meetings and all that other stuff, that's a big investment.
You'd have to look into really what you want to do. There's pros and cons, as we talked about, with different permit types. Yes.
Just to clarify, the home business permit would allow us to sell non-agricultural items that we create, as opposed to non-agricultural items somebody else creates somewhere else.
No, you could do both.
Yeah, but Woodstock home occupation regulations don't limit you to sell only things that you make. I live in the town of Peckham, and it's very different there, but in Woodstock, I don't believe that you're limited to selling your own stuff. There are some people with home occupations that sell stuff that they don't even make.
Correct.
But there's some people who make fishing lures, and they have photography business, and they have, lots of different types of home occupations.
There's a lot of them. I have one as a consulting business professionally. So yes, you could potentially partner with others and use your space to sell their stuff.
Okay.
Look at the regulations, because home occupations are going to limit your space. There's a lot of limitations in home occupations. The advantage is it's a quote unquote easier and cheaper process as far as time and money outlay. There's also a pro and con of the special permit. If you really would like to upfront look into seeing what you can do now, but then have the assurance of being able to do more within that special permit moving forward without having to keep coming back. There's a, there is some upfront costs and time commitment, but then the flip side is you got that bigger benefit moving forward. So there's a pro and con to either approach, depending upon what you wish to do and are able to afford to do.
And so our next step would be to speak with Ashley and figure out what those requirements are and make a decision based on.
Yes, yeah, looking through the regulations and understanding the pros and cons, and certainly working with Ashley as the zoning enforcement officer. And then ultimately it'll be up to whatever you feel you wish to do.
Thank you. Really
Was there
appreciate your time.
anything from any other commissioner? I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, did you have any other questions or comments?
I think it's clear to me.
Okay, well, you're always welcome to come to us for, you're not limited to one preliminary discussion. But certainly, Ashley as as the zoning enforcement officer is available, in the office. So, we're here to be of help. And then depending upon which permit you decide you want to go with, then we follow the process as defined in our regulations and by state law. So we're happy to go accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you all.
But we're glad that you're doing well and moving forward and getting a nice barn. So thank you for being part of the community. Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that, everyone.
You have a good night as well. That takes us to the next preliminary discussion, assuming that's what you're here for,
Yes, I am, sir.
since you're the only one left. So this is agenda item 10B, Cloutier Construction or Remodeling, discussion about state property for sale across from One West Road and uses for it. And interesting configuration of the property that's there. But please, what I'll do is I'll open up for you if you want to let us know about what it is you want to do and any questions you have. Just state your name for the record, please.
Like, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board for having me on the agenda. My name is Paul Cloutier. Here to, as you know, discuss the property next to Sprucedale. I believe it's the old town garage or something it used to be.
Was it part of the state highway?
Yeah, it was the state garage.
Yeah, there was something that was there.
So I haven't gotten a copy of like the dimensions of the property, so that's been kind of a,
Do we have something to show up there?
Yeah.
I think this came from what? This came from a map we have from DOT?
so what are, I'm under the impression, and I've been told that the setbacks frontage is 70 feet with 20 feet on the sides, if I'm correct.
Let me pull that up. Let me just ask you a quick question, so that way I think that will help us from the get-go.
Understand what I'm looking for.
What is it that you're looking to do with the property?
Cloutier Construction is not really, I'm doing handyman service. I'm not really doing Cloutier Construction anymore, but I own a lot of equipment. I currently house a wood shop and metal shop at my father-in-law's, and that property is being sold. I live on Beach Street. Our property is less than half an acre, and my wife will kill me if I bring any more stuff home. So I'm looking to possibly put like 2 Conex boxes there, make them not look like junk, paint them, make them nice, make them attractive, keep the property attractive. But to be able to put, I own a skid steer and some implements, like I said, woodworking, metal shop tools, and various tools. I'm looking for storage. I'm not going to be manufacturing. I'm not going to be selling out of there. I'm just really looking for storage. With the price of property nowadays, I don't need a lot, but I need something of that size. And this is an affordable option. I know the state has put this property up for many, many years, and they just recently relisted it. And they're going to run into the same difficulties they have in the last 10 years that it's been on the auction block. And they're taking, bids for it. They did up the bid $1,000 from the previous listing. It used to be 15, now it's 16. But what I'm looking to do is see if I have room. A Conex box is, 8 feet by, I could do 30 or 40. If I could put 2 of those side by side, I don't care where, dead center, whatever, and have them again, not be an eyesore, not make it a trash facility, but a place I can utilize.
Does this say how much acreage that is? 0.2.
So, just a little bigger than our property.
So let me just ask a question then, for general dimension standards. This would be considered non-residential / commercial.
Yeah, the property will be taxed as commercial.
So the frontage on the public street, which this counts, would have to be 150 feet, which it meets because it says it's 151 plus or minus something. And then it says that the setback in the front has to be 60 feet and the side rear has to be 40 feet. Maximum building height is 35 feet. Does the minimum lot size of 1.25 acres have to apply then? But that would be a catch. We have in our regulations, minimum lot size for non-residential / commercial, 1.25 acres. Which this would not be. So I would then that create an issue based upon our dimensional standards we have in the regs?
I'm assuming there have to be some kind of variance for this property.
And we don't grant variances, the zoning board of appeals does.
Yeah.
Based upon set criteria.
Yeah.
If they grant a variance, I'm just thinking, if they grant a variance, then people come to us. But if there is no variance granted, and it turns out it's not compliant with the regs, we can't take it up. I guess the issue is the 1.25 acres, it's that the kicker here. If it's 0.2. Am I reading it correctly?
Is this, did you say it was a commercial sale?
Well, so the problem is that this piece of land isn't even in like our records. It's not
Right.
a parcel, so it has to be created. I talked to the assessor, and since the parcel behind it, which you can see on the is this 0.7 acres, is taxed commercially. She said she would keep this parcel the same because essentially it's this other parcel is state land as well. So there would be no reason to classify it differently.
So you know which part is being sold?
This,
Just that triangular
yes,
section?
yep. So this is the map that I got from the state showing what is being sold.
But it wouldn't be used for, your use isn't going to be for single family residential or agriculture.
No, or commercial.
It's personal or as part of the business.
It's personal.
Okay.
The business is all but dissolved.
But technically, if it's not commercial, it's would be, and it's not residential ag, it would be non-residential. So this table says non-residential / commercial mean either. This is on page 49 where we have general dimension standards.
Okay.
So if it's non-residential and nothing to do with commercial, we would have to read that row. That's the row that's applicable, Delia?
In terms of referring to the NECOG map, it's often wrong on the acreage and sometimes on where the boundary lines are. So if that czar shaped wedge, I guess you'd call it, if they're saying that's 0.7, but the better accuracy map is saying this not quite a triangle is 0.2, I would think the NECOG map is wrong. I wouldn't think that wedge is going to be 0.7 if that other piece is 0.2.
But we do have the map from DOT that clearly shows the dimensions and it's 0.2. I'm just trying to think of what we're able to do given the dimensional standards we follow.
But that's for building a house or doing something on it, right?
And that's for non-residential.
Yeah, if he's not putting a permanent structure on, doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's
That's
still
why I'm asking.
non-residential use. And non-residential use doesn't only apply to structures. It's about the use.
So I guess the issue is if we say in our regulations, non-residential has to have a non-residential use has to have a minimum lot size of 1.25 acres, wouldn't the process be, you'd have to request a variance, not from us. And if you get the variance, then an application to us can be submitted. Is that a process that it has to be followed?
Yeah, I think part of tonight is just asking, what he's looking to be allowed if he got a variance.
Yes.
Yeah, so I assume for me to apply for a variance, I have to own the property. So I don't want to buy the
I know,
property
I'm
and
just
not,
thinking
not
about
be able to
exactly
do
what the
anything.
process is for us.
Right.
And as far as your intended use, I'll open it up to what others think. If you're gonna put storage containers there.
Yeah.
We don't say no to that. Although the setbacks have to apply, right?
They actually may not, right?
That's why I'm
Because
asking.
they're not permanent structures.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
I'm not just, you know, but I just wanted to state that for other applications, sometimes the applicant doesn't own it. They get a consent form signed by the owner. And that happens in lots of.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The state, that would take
That was not a
years.
comment.
Well, if they want to sell it, maybe they can sign a consent.
So I
form
guess
for
the
it.
issue is if the
It's
intended
been
use
sitting on for decades.
is to put containers.
Yeah.
On knowing that there's a limit to what you can, how much you're gonna be able to, how many containers you can put on that property.
Right. My,
What does the commission feel is that incompatible? It would seem to me not to be a problem.
My only comment, I know you say you make them look nice, but may ask about either live fencing or stockade fencing to kind of make, not necessarily all around, but on the more visible side.
I'm completely agreeable to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd actually make it 20 by 40 by whatever within the setback so we can work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would also keep people away from the thing. So I'm not opposed to that at all.
Okay.
Again, there's neighbors there. I don't want the guy just up the road to drive by this trashy box every time he goes home now.
Right.
You know, he doesn't have that now. He doesn't deserve it in the future. So I understand that from the curb appeal.
And that may be a condition we could, would impose for using the land to have some kind of.
Sounds like you might want to have that for security anyway.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Yeah. And are you gonna be doing any lighting or anything there? It's more,
No, it'd be really interior. If I could, it'd be very minor. I'd only put electricity, there'd be no plumbing. I own my own personal porta potty being in construction. So that may or may not be there again behind a fencing or behind a.
but you wouldn't be putting in light poles, any lighting
No,
on the
if
inside.
anything, maybe on a corner of a box, just so somebody walks in, they trigger it, not facing the road that triggers every time a car goes off, but shallowly pointed. That way, you know, very little and very, again, I wouldn't put it facing the residents behind or anything that would be unpleasing to the neighbors. I would only in the parking lot if somebody actually came in and attempted to enter the property.
Anything from any other commissioner? I can't see right now the folks who are on. I just want to make certain, any of you commissioners have any questions or comments? Did we lose Doug? Okay. All right.
So the state's gonna keep that other little piece there for themselves?
Yes.
Do we have a parcel number for the little part? So the little part is on the other side of that property road. It's not an actual road for the town or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. That might be with that.
How many acres is it? Ashley,
It's 0.2.
85, 80 square feet. Give or take.
Looks like 11,940.
So basically, these are going to just be warehouses, in a sense, right?
In a sense, yeah.
So isn't it like a shed that a resident may just put on his or her own property,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in a sense? Because these aren't going to be on wheels,
No, no, no.
but you're going to drive back and forth.
No.
You want them there.
What I would essentially probably do is pour a concrete pad so that they sit level within whatever, and then they can be taken or put away if
You're not going to be constantly, like they're on wheels, you're driving them in, and then a week later you drive them out. It's more like what someone might do with the shed, putting them on cinder blocks.
right.
Then you're going to be storing stuff in there, and you'll have lighting in it if you want, to do whatever you want to do, like someone may want to do in the shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So really, it's a non-residential use. Would seem to be, right? Ashley?
One of the ones fine, that it wouldn't be setback.
I know we have stuff about,
It won't be the setback.
how do we define that with regards to
I
the
don't know
setbacks?
specifically.
So, what were the setbacks again? It was 60, 40.
60 foot in the front,
40 on the side and
40
rear.
on the side and rear.
But we
So
have a note.
you couldn't meet it.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
You couldn't meet it.
yeah, because that's 80 feet just on the sides, the
I'm
front.
just trying to see.
Yeah.
Didn't we have something else about structures? Some of them had different setback rules than others, I thought. In the regs.
There. It would be,
Here we go.
it would be close.
Right.
Well, you got 150,
Yeah, you need the 150, but you need a lot that's 100 foot deep.
well, this is 152 on one side, so we take 80 from that, well, 60, 40, 100, so you have 50 feet. So a Conex box of 40 feet actually would meet that parameter.
Yeah.
But then the property gets shallower and that becomes an issue. I built houses, I used to build houses, I've actually had to cut a corner of a deck to make a setback, give it a decorative 45-degree angle.
So let me ask you a question. What is the square footage of these storage boxes?
320 square feet each, 8 feet by 40 feet, right?
So it's, so according to, because we have some things on structures under dimensional requirements, performance status. I know it says structures for non-residential use, but we also have other things in here that says structures greater than 121 square feet. Yeah, it must meet front setback.
Why would you specify structures for non-residential uses if you would
I'm
allow
just-
them to have other?
Well, that's why I mentioned, because we have some of these other things in here. What happens? We have things in here that say performance status for all uses, and then we have different categories.
That's one, this is section 2.
I'm just, that's why I'm raising it to make certain it's very, very clear where we see it. We have structures here, including a bus shelter, package delivery box. The bus shelter is non-residential. So, but it would seem to me that it would may well have to fall into those setbacks.
It just sounds like it will.
Residential property for children getting on the school bus.
But I don't know the
Don't know.
process. You have to get the variance first, or you have to own the land first, or
So I guess the issue is, your big question to us is,
would we allow it?
Yeah.
would we feel it's an incompatible use that is not allowed in the regulation? And if you meet whatever setbacks,
And which street do we use the setback? Which one?
there's only one, well,
Well, if it's a corner lot, they're both fronts.
they're both fronts. Correct, and both of them meet the minimum 150 square feet. You can have more than one front street, because this
Yeah,
one
but-
has 2 streets.
But
It
that
has
gives you
west
the
and-
60-foot setback instead of 40 on what I would consider the side.
Right,
So,
we'd have to determine which one is really the, would it go by what the address is?
Well, if they're both front streets, then they're both fronts. It's not your issue if they can't meet the setback. That's what you need a variance, but then you have to have a hardship.
That has to go through zoning board of appeals.
Right.
so the only possible way, and I apologize for speaking freely, the only possible real way to make this work is to try to talk the state into that other parcel that they're not going to use for any other thing. That is the only way to make this law conforming to anything.
It may well, because Delia does raise a point, there are 2 roads.
Right. No, I get
Yeah.
the point, yeah.
And so if it were to fall, so it has to be, it's not what the address is, it's if there are 2 streets, each one is a frontage.
And they need a 60-foot.
Right,
Right.
versus the 40, right.
If you
Which would
were,
push it, too
Yeah.
far out.
but that other
And
property,
that little piece isn't gonna help you either, so.
You don't think?
why wouldn't it, the other one? Because it is set back a bit more,
It opens up, I'd almost say.
depending on how you angle the boxes.
Right, yeah.
You looking at this map,
Yeah,
this piece down here?
no, there's one in the back. You're talking about the one that's in the back?
It's,
Right there.
it's probably where the 0.7 comes from, if they're considering that whole property.
And that's the one you're talking about?
Yes,
the arrow.
exactly.
It's that one back there. Is the state trying to sell that also?
I don't know, but I don't see any use to it.
What are they doing?
After you have no access, they don't have road frontage, you have 10 feet of road frontage.
But if the state wanted, I'm sure the state would just get to its property and ask you later.
Right, right.
Yeah, and good luck catching up to them.
Right,
I guess the issue, if you were to get that other property as well, and that becomes, you'd have to make it one property, I guess,
right, and that would,
which just to merge two lots, then would that give you enough as far as the two roads that have to be the frontage, as far as the setbacks? I don't know.
if you put the Conex box on that, road, the property road, I think that right where the wording is about would probably satisfy everything. I think there's enough room there. Is my question.
Yeah,
Because then,
I'm just looking here, you have to have two parts of this that are 60 feet setback, and then the others are 40. Unless you get variance from ZBA, that 1.2 is going to leave you nothing to be able to put a box.
It don't, you have to be careful with the variance because it's really based on a hardship.
It is, ZBA has to determine.
yeah,
This is creating a hardship and you can't claim a hardship if you're
but I'm looking at
buying into something you know you can't use.
that other parcel that's back there. If using measurements here, it's probably 200 and something feet long against the fence line. So coming off of that, the 40 feet near the road, I would assume I could turn it sideways and it would fit all dimensions.
And how much frontage does that have on the road?
The second parcel,
Yeah. You need what,
It looks like-
150 feet?
it has 1 foot of frontage, if I'm looking at this, because if you look at the, yeah, it has like 1 foot of frontage, it reaches that dot where the
Yeah.
half circle.
But doesn't it also then go off to West Road? Doesn't it abut West Road? That parcel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Up here.
Yeah, yeah,
So the question is, how much frontage is on West Road?
that would be, it would put, keep going.
It's right, well,
So anything over there is going to be subject to the 60-foot setback.
yeah, and you have to have, and our regs say you have to have 150-foot frontage.
So I haven't looked at this property, in depth lately, but is that old salt shed still on there?
No, there's
No,
nothing
it's
there.
gone now.
There's just a mound I'd probably have to remove, which would scare me because I don't know what they did at the state garage with their oil. I don't want to create more.
So would it be then, you have to have 150 square feet, 150 feet of at least frontage on a public street.
Well, there's currently 152 on West Street with the current little piece.
But the other one, if you were to get both,
Yeah,
it would seem you would have then enough land to be able to meet setbacks and put stuff in. Otherwise, it looks like you wouldn't if it's just that one property.
right. I would need to combine them.
These two conflict though.
Any part is not inaccurate.
But the DOT is the accurate one, isn't it?
One would hope.
This is
So
the map that,
I don't see where. It appears to me that that piece, the knee card piece, appears to me that goes to the Youngsville property.
What about the leak on that?
This map would, this piece that's highlighted here, that you have here, that, according to this map, that appears that it goes to the Youngsville property. But the state only has that little teeny triangle down at the end there that, tapers to 0 and is the 53 feet is one end of it, and it's got 179 feet on the road and 149 feet in the back.
yeah, that I don't know, it doesn't say. So perhaps that, I don't know. There is a property line there, though. I think one would have to get further clarification on the map.
That wedge has a map lot and lot, so it should be identifiable in the assessor's records.
Tried to look it up, I couldn't find it, so.
Well, it sounds like you'd have to see exactly what properties you're able to get to meet the setbacks. Otherwise, the use there doesn't seem to be any issue being raised about the intended use.
I talked about it, I talked to someone about a year and a half ago here about the property, and they suggest, oh, do a food truck. I'm like, that's great, but I don't want to get in the food truck business. So,
That was good advice then.
yeah, no, it would be a good location.
So I guess it comes down to, if one of your questions is there a big issue with the intended use? It would seem, there doesn't seem to be a big issue with the intended use.
But-
not as it meet, as long as it meets all the other regulations,
Right.
setbacks and sides, and
You would need
you
it.
can get enough.
So in its current form, it's unusable. Only if only if that property is actually legitimately the state property back there, I'd have to, talk to someone, Jesus, that'll be the person to find. I'll be a needle in a haystack.
It is interesting that if the state owns that there's 3 different little pieces. That's a bit strange.
But you get a small comment.
Well, you can do 20, 10, I think is the smallest, but I'd have to stack them up and have an elevator.
It would seem then it's looked like you'd have to get more than just that one piece. It's interesting that the state does have several different.
Is that, you're looking up that is a state property? Yeah.
It's owned by the state.
So then I guess you would have to talk with the state if one were to get. I don't know what the state wants to do with those other 2 pieces.
So
but-
what other 2? I'm seeing the one with the wedge. There's one in front, some weird.
Is that the one that's in the back?
No, there's a wedge to the left, like a door wedge. Right there.
This is just, their right of way. I don't think they're selling.
That there right away?
That's not part of the other.
No. Yeah, it's just, it's not ours.
Right.
The other drawing on the property.
Right.
Yeah.
So which one, that one that's in green right now, the
Yeah.
state owns?
Yes.
So they own the road too.
So I guess the issue would really be, what does the state want to do with these parcels?
Yeah.
That's up to the state.
Yeah.
Looks like you'd have to get more than just that one little piece.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to deal with that. But I think you guys are great giving me some information, and I appreciate, your collaborative brains here. But
Otherwise, your intended use doesn't seem to be a problem.
Unless this is more than 1¼ acre with all the lots, that may still be an issue.
yeah, that's,
Does
okay.
it say? Oh, wait, that's highlighted right now, although I don't know if that's accurate. That says what, 43? Oh, no, it's just feet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume this might fall under that
Does
0.7
it
that
say
you
on the property you looked up?
utilizing all the properties, not breaking in.
And if it's really only 0.7 acres for all the pieces, that may be too small to do anything to be in compliance with our regs.
Unless you get a variance.
But it's wouldn't be a self-created hardship, and I don't think they will.
They don't look at
Bottom line
that. State law says it can't be a self-created hardship.
Understood.
Yeah,
Well,
but
right, and where I generally work out in Massachusetts, and so hardship, yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah, the state law about what ZBA can and cannot do as far as how they define hardship.
Right.
But they're separate agencies.
You may need to find another piece of land.
Yeah. I agree. I can bid on the cheap.
I can make a suggestion. If you decide to pursue this, you really should look into hiring someone who's familiar with Connecticut law. Because people who hire Massachusetts people
Understood.
end up paying a lot more money and cost a lot more time because they go by how things work in Massachusetts, and that's not how it works in Connecticut.
Understood.
If you're able to make it work for doing whatever, make it compliant with our regs, I don't have a problem with the intended use, all the power to you to do it.
But would a Connex box being a what would we fall under the 1 point,
Non-residential.
yeah, the 1 point, what was it,
2.5.
So no matter what, I need, even if it's Connex boxes, which are not a permanent structure, I would still have to fall under the 1.2.
Unless you meet the definition of getting a variance from the ZBA.
If they meet my wife, they'll understand this is a hardship. I gotta get the crap out of my yard.
But otherwise, the intended use doesn't seem to be an issue. From what it's really more coming down to what that type of property can really meet dimensionally.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, appreciate it, gentlemen.
hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks for your
Yes.
patience.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming tonight.
Have a good evening.
You do.
That takes us to ZEO reports. I know we've already mentioned about topics for annual training, which, again, anybody who has anything they would like to get to Ashley, I'll get to Ashley ASAP. Otherwise, I'll work with Ashley to get some things. I'll go through my notes of things that I've marked down during commission meetings since the last annual training session in the weekend. And Rich usually goes through a primer on some of the statutory things we have and authority and the do's and don'ts and things like that, freedom of information, and all that fun stuff that we have to be mindful of. We have the list of permits. Does anybody have any questions about those? Is there anything enforcement wise? Ashley?
Nothing.
Okay, can I just ask one question? I know that the law changed to allow the outdoor dining to be an easier process. I know Sherwood's have been granted something during that temporary last year during the pandemic. I know the law now has made things extended, I think, what, another year or longer. Did they have to seek a new permit, or were they able to fall under the provisions of the new law that allowed them to continue what they did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that law they did basically extend that law. I forget when, how long. I don't remember how long that goes for. I think they have to renew it at some point, or unless the state law changes again.
Yeah, I think the state law is good till next year.
But if a business hadn't done it last year, they have to come in for a permit now.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
So that's what I thought was the case and what Rich had told me when I was just discussing with him at one point during the legislative session about what the heck the language was trying to do, because it was confusing to read it. So, okay. Does anyone have any questions about any of this stuff? Okay. We have our budget review. Keep in mind that the fiscal year ends in June or the end of June. Let me just ask you this question. You may not have the answer, Ashley, but has there been any discussion at town hall, given that the budget proposal failed? And now we're going to have a new budget. And I think it was what, 10,000 is being potentially proposed coming out of the non-school part of the budget. Anything that has been mentioned about potentially affecting anything relative to your office? I mean, our commission is like, what, 3,000 or something, but anything that's been suggested about across the board cuts, or is it more they're looking at certain bigger ticket items that you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from, but I don't think it's coming from any departments specifically. At least not mine.
And I've advocated for making certain that during this time that land use department's been built up, you don't want to step back. Oh, we still, commissioners still get a doubling of their salary. Because anything times 0 is 0.
Every year.
Yep, it's perfect. Right. So it's perfect. But but as long as we're mindful of that, we'll see what happens with the next budget vote. But just to be mindful that, you know, there is that cut that will have to come out of the quote unquote town side, not the school side. There's a separate.
The rumor is it's coming out of the tree with it.
Has to come somewhere. So technically, the Board of Finance could come back with a budget, I think, just $1 less, isn't it? It has to be less than what was proposed that failed, but you know, they had their meeting.
They met yesterday. There's no cuts. They're taking it out of a 51 account that has to be closed out and paying healthcare out of that account. So it's not changing anything in the budget for the general budget.
Would make sense to them.
Because there's this one account that they have to close out for the auditor. So they're taking that amount of money, because it has to be applied to health benefits or something, and bring that in the health benefits field, and then taking the money out of that to spread to everything.
And that's how they got to
Keep it
cut.
level.
That's how they deal with it.
So there's no changes on the general government.
I figured there was some ways that they would be able to handle it, because they've done that in certain prior years to move things around in different accounts. So, good, well, thank you.
Well, I took the minutes, so I figured I'd just share the actual facts with you.
So hopefully we'll have more money for notices next fiscal year, because they cut them this year. I keep reminding when they say that we're going to go over budget, I'm like, we're not going over budget, because we haven't spent wildly on other things. We cut our budget on the notices that we have no choice but to put in the paper, then what can we do? So, but I am glad to see that there's a continued commitment to support the land use department. So, and still contract with Nikon, by the way. So we can still have you come to meetings. Whether you like to or not. So,
Amy, when did they set the referendum for?
31st? No, the town meeting is the 31st and the referendum. June.
Didn't think it had to go back to a town meeting.
there's no vote at the town meeting. It isn't the selectmen gonna, don't they designate that it's automatically going to referendum anyway? Is that how they word it? So it's kind of a formality in a sense, but maybe we'll get more people to show up at town meeting to hear more about the budget. And be reminded there's a actual vote on the budget every year. So hopefully it's not when I'm away on vacation, but I can pull an absentee ballot. That's not a problem. Okay. Correspondence, we always get this stuff from the state and from these, the tower companies about this is relative to stuff we have to be notified on. So if you want to see, I don't know how much, sometimes it's a booklet they say. Yeah, it's big. If you really want to spend time and read through that stuff, all the power to you. I know. This is fun. I know when I was active with the town's telecommunications task force many years ago, we would look at some of this stuff. And it is unbelievably detailed, technical, the things I really don't want to know. So, but you're more than welcome to look at it. So if you want to, we just get notified. Keep in mind the siting, Connecticut Siting Council has jurisdiction. We don't forward. So it is what it is. That takes us then, is there any other correspondence that I missed? Because I didn't look at the mailbox. So that takes us then to agenda item 15. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, so moved. Is there a second? Second. So motion by Adaletta, seconded by Jeff Marcotte. I think Doug is not on it anymore, right? So technically, Dean, if you wanted, we could seat you during the best one. The motion to adjourn. Would you like to be seated for it? Let's note for the record that Dean is seated for it. So that way we will make him happy that he gets to vote for. And we'll note that Doug is not present. So I'll go through the roll because we're required to. Joe Adaletta? Aye. Mark Tuck's not here. Sid Blodgett?
Aye.
Is that an aye?
Yeah.
Nancy Frazier?
Aye.
Jeff Gordon? I'm going to vote aye on that one. Dean Gould? Aye. Jeff Marcotte?
Aye.
Morse is not here. Joe Blulek, you want to adjourn?
Aye.
Doug is not here. And Dwight Reinowitz, would you like to adjourn as well?
Yes, sir. Aye.
Well, unless there's an objection, we are adjourned at whatever time you have.
51, right?
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Have a good night.